What's up, everybody? Phil here of LA, and I'm gonna post one of the first videos I wanted to do for, the group page and whatnot. For those of you who don't know, I am one half of LA. My name's Philip Moulard. I do all the production, instruments. There's a couple of songs I've came up with at the top of my head, but for the most part, I do all the instrumentation. And Graham, he usually either brings lyrics or some of the songs he's had videos of him singing. He's already had melodies crafted. Um, so yeah, that's who I am. And I'm making this video because a lot of people have been asking me, how do we get our sound? I hear things like, oh, you guys have this really organic, warm sound. How is that? And the answer to that is everything I use is analog equipment. I don't use any, I say not any, and there is a fine line with one of my synths that I use. But for the most part, I use analog stuff, old school style drum machines and old school style synthesizers. That's what I use. The first couple of tracks I did use the digital bass that was in the Acoustica Mixcraft 9, which is the DAW I use. But for the most part, most of the sounds you hear is the Arturia MicroBrute. This is a kind of it's basically an analog synth, but there is some digital things going on in here. The patch bay right here, it is a digital simulation of a actual physical patch bay that you would find on a monologue or analog mono synth, much like this one, which I use also. And this is a Behringer TD3, which is their copy of the Roland TB303. So those patch bays I was talking about, it has very little. Big synths have a huge row of these, and actual Euro rack gears, the whole thing is just massive. It's a ton of these, and you put little chords and it skips. I'm not getting into how synths work, but that's what I use. And what they do is they're actual instruments that have actual outputs, just like a guitar. And yeah, that's my sound. My drum sounds are also analog. I use the Arturia MicroBrute, or not MicroBrute, DrumBrute Impact. That's all the drum sounds you hear. It's this buddy right here. And thing is not light. Let me hold up but going back to the MicroFreak. So the MicroFreak, this is really my secret weapon. I use this on almost everything. And yeah, I don't know. It just, I guess to explain what the MicroFreak does is these are not keys, right? So this is like a sensor pad, essentially. And that is the same technology when you go to the hospital where they check the oxidation on your finger, or those old games in restaurants where you put your finger and it tell you your love or some shit. I don't remember. It did something, but it had these sensors. And what this does is once you get all the sounds that you've dialed in, touching this, the output goes not just on the impact of how you touch it, but it picks up the heat and the electrical current coming off of your body. And essentially what that does is it can make things, it makes things very organic feeling. And the way I touch the MicroFreak and the output I get from even the same patch setting that you can give me will sound different depending on how you play it. As a guitar player, primarily, this is the best thing I've ever bought. This is really what got me into doing this, and I wouldn't be where I am without this thing. So Arturia, if you're watching this, I heavily endorse this. If you like our songs, this is on every song. If it's not the main melody synth, it's on there. It's a big part of every single song we've done up to this point. Now, I did say everything's analog. There are a couple of keys on the early songs, like maybe a piano part or two, especially on Lost and Found. Lost and Found does use keyboard sounds, but they are Arturia's Analog Lab keyboard sounds. So, yeah. And another thing I use, which I should have grabbed before I started this, is the Arturia KeyStep. And this is a very, very popular MIDI controller. A lot of people use this one. And the reason why I use it is because unlike most $100 MIDI controllers, it actually has MIDI in and out. And you can connect a actual expression pedal for sustain and all that good stuff, which I do have. I do own a Roland, was it EV6 expression pedal? But yeah, so the combination of our sound is all the things I just shown you and a lot of guitar. I use a lot of guitar. I write primarily in guitar. It's kind of, I'm a guitar player, so it's natural for me. But yeah, that's the sound. As far as the guitars I use, I could turn the monitor and maybe show you some. I don't know. That's not gonna work. But anyways, I use a Fender Player Jazzmaster, a Fender Player Mustang, a Squier, Paranormal Series, what is that? Supersonic, and a lot of the songs. Actually, I'll grab this. A lot of the songs that you hear are played on this brand new 2020 Epiphone SG Muse. Black sparkle, as you can see, it's got a lot of nudgies and feels. This is actually, I don't consider this my guitar. I bought this guitar for my oldest daughter, and I haven't really had time to really teach her yet, especially with LA booming, like this project booming as it is. But I got this for her because I wanted something that sounded good, that felt really good in the hands, and she, that would appeal to her. And this is a fantastic guitar. As someone who is not a big Gibson Epi fan, I went and I compared Squiers and everything else, and this was the best bang for the buck. I was going to try to get her, she wanted like a nicer Strat, and I saw a couple of classic vibes that she had picked out, but this just felt better, and it just sounds better, and it's just a great guitar for $420. This thing is insane. Epiphone's killing it, and I love the new Epi headstock that's very similar to Gibson. So yeah, a lot of sounds you hear, like a lot of the guitar sounds are this thing. Another two very important pieces of gear are my pedals. I run my pedal board through my synths, but the two pedals that I run every time, especially recently, is the Electro-Harmonix Oceans 11 reverb. If you own any sort of electronic equipment and you don't really need stereo, and if you do need stereo, they make a $100 more version of this, which is called the Oceans 12, and it has you covered and has way more options. But if you don't, and I don't think you do, if you're doing what I'm doing, you don't, this has you covered. And this, in my opinion, for $150, they do not make a better digital reverb unit with as many options and as many good sounds. I have tried every comparable option, even EHX's own Holy Grails. This is the best thing on the market. I've tried Joyo's. I mean, okay, the Strymon Blue Sky is probably better, gives you a little more. It's It's also $300. And actually, I think this has a warmer, more ambient kind of sound. And if you're playing some shrill synth stuff like the TD3 here, very old, very shrill, bassy. But if you put something like this, kind of, or with the TD3, you have a fantastic sound. And then another thing that I use, I run my Stone Deaf PDF 1X. When I bought this for guitar, I just kind of liked it. I thought, oh, well, this is cool. Kind of does things my other pedals do. And I didn't really understand the parametric EQ that's on it, which is essentially what I use this for. But EQing the synths and the drum machine through this has a lot to do with my sound, because I'm doing it all going into the interface, which, by the way, my interface is a Presonus Audio Box 96. I'm not using anything fancy. And again, I only needed a 2-input simple interface. And this was the only one in the price range that had MIDI, and I needed MIDI for all my analog synths. So it is what it is, and it works. It's not the best sounding. There's some fuzz and stuff, but it's a good synth. Not synth. Interface. Meh. Anyways, that's it. That's my gear. I want to do more of these videos. At some point, I want to talk about the songs and how we broke them down. But I want to get Graham here for that. But anyways, thank you. Hope you guys like this video. And that's it. Later.